but he caught the attention of many media outlets a few weeks ago when he tweeted that China should really get out. And this was in relation to their dispute with China over the South China Sea.
The Philippines has long been a strategic ally of the United States in Asia, but could its foreign policy positions be changing, especially under the administration of President Duterte? Recent comments by the foreign minister caught media attention and caused quite a controversy. Joining us to discuss is Nicholas Babaya, who is the head of Geostrategic analysis for the CRA. Nicholas is based in Florida, USA. Nicholas, tell us about these comments that were made by the foreign minister recently.
Well, the Filipino foreign minister is a guy by the name of Teodoro Locsin, and he's a very interesting character to listen to if you ever see one of his speeches. But he caught the attention of many media outlets a few weeks ago when he tweeted, with a number of expletives, might I say. I would suggest anyone to go look it up for themselves, that China should really get out. And this was in relation to their dispute with China over the South China Sea. Now, the Philippines is but one of many Southeast Asian nations that has maritime territorial disputes with China. If you ever look at a Chinese map, you'll see that China claims a very large territory in the South China Sea, and this has put it in dispute with other countries. I think this is very interesting to observe, as it is just one single tweet, even though it is from a very important cabinet minister in the Philippines. But I think it just is yet another sign that shows that even though the Philippines, which has historically been a US ally, has been quite keen to craft its own independent foreign policy, especially under the presidency of Rodrigo Duterte, the territorial disputes with China have been an impediment on their relationship with China. And this is the case with a lot of Southeast Asian countries. But I think it just shows that the importance of territorial sovereignty and how China's disputes in the South China Sea are going to cause continual problems with it cozying up to countries in that region.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
Nicholas, why do you think China is so intent on following through on some of these territorial disputes?
Well, I think it comes back down to China's geographic challenge. If you look at a big superpower like the United States has had an immense advantage due to its geography. It's got two enormous oceans to its east and west coasts. It has two countries to its north and south, neither of which it has particularly large geographic territorial disputes or hostile relations. But in the case of China, you actually have a country which borders many, many different countries, has historically had many geographical disputes. And most importantly, if you look at a map of China, you'll see that even though China has a very, very long coastline, that entire coastline, starting from the north all the way to the south, effectively has its direct access to the Pacific Ocean blocked by a number of island nations, many of which are very close allies of the United States, and some of which even have US military bases like Japan and South Korea. Now, this is a great national security threat for China. You can imagine in a war scenario, these countries could easily blockade China, and this would pose a really great threat as China's economy is heavily dependent on exports and imports. And thus, it's incredibly important for China to develop very close relationships for countries in East and Southeast Asia, but it's also very, very important for them to maintain these territorial claims, as to sort of give up these claims would set a very bad precedent for a country already which has rather large geographic problems. So despite the fact that these territorial disputes that it has with many nations in Southeast Asia are an impediment to their relationships developing further, I think what it shows is this is how much China values the claims that it has and its territorial sovereignty. And this makes a lot of sense, especially when you view it from the point of national security for China.
So Nicholas, where does the United States fit into this?
The Philippines and the United States have had a mutual defense pact since the year 1951. Obviously, the history of those two countries goes back much, much further, as the United States at one point occupied the Philippines. And there's a great cultural and historical link as a result between those two countries. So for America to have a very close relationship with the Philippines, especially given its proximity to important places like mainland China, Taiwan, and its position as being one of the periphery countries within the first island chain, is extremely important for the US to have a close relationship with the Philippines. it's therefore very interesting to see that since the Duterte became president, in the preceding years, the Philippines has really tried to craft their own more independent foreign policy, not having to rely on the US and being more open to cooperation with China. What I would say is that we now have a relatively new Biden administration, and it's going to be very, very important, especially given the ever-increasing military and economic might of China, for the United States administration to have a closer relationship with nations in Southeast Asia, of which the Philippines, no doubt, is a very, very important one.
Thanks very much, Nicholas. I think it's very interesting to see how countries like the Philippines are playing China off against the USA and vice versa, and trying to leverage advantage through that route. My name is David Ansara. This is the Center for Risk Analysis. If you enjoyed our analysis, you might want to try our 30-day free trial. There's a link in the description below where you can access it through that route. Until next time, take care.